Hello, dear. It's good to have you in today's class. How do you do? All right. So listen attentively as the class begins. My friend made a grave mistake in the letter he wrote me last week. Instead of to write Dear Ken, as in Dear, he wrote Deer. He mis in fact he confused the word deer, which is a grass-eating animal, with the word dear, dear, which means much loved. Imagine how I felt when I see my dear friend address me as deer, deer, an animal that eats grass. But I was wrong. It was just a spelling mistake. And that brings us to today's topic, spelling rules in English. So today we'll be looking at some spelling rules in English. In fact, from my experience, you can see why we must get our spellings right always. When you get your spelling wrong, of course, it can cause a lot of damages to your speech or writing. People will misunderstand you, or it will even cause confusion because wrong spellings change the meaning of what is being said. The truth is that some English words are difficult to spell, and so pupils often make mistakes in spelling them. For example, it is sometimes very difficult to spell E, or to even know when to spell E before I, as in receive, or when to spell I before E, as in the word believe. Now, in other cases, it's also very difficult to know how to spell words that contain silent letters, such as the silent T as in listen, the silent K as in knife, or the silent H as in R. All of these are very difficult. English language has several spelling rules which can teach you and I how to spell, but most of them have exceptions. And by exceptions, I mean what we can also call limitations to the rules. So there are limits to the rules. Now, we come to the first rule, which is spelling I before E. What do we do here? Ask yourself, when do we spell I before E? The answer is simple. Spell I before E when the sound you hear is a long E sound. I use the double E to show you that the sound is long. So when I have the long E sounds, I spell I before E. Examples include chief, field, niece, thief, priest, brief, and so on. But there are exceptions to this. In science, we also spell I before E, but it's an exception. It doesn't work that way here. So I have exceptions such as in science and in the word fiend. Okay? Fiend might be a bit difficult for you. It simply means an enemy, okay? An enemy or something that is not friendly, so to say. Now, sometimes again, we also spell E before I. Now you ask yourself, when do we spell E before I? The answer is also simple. I spell E before I when the letter C occurs with the long E sound. How does that happen? Let's look out for some examples. In the word receive, did you see letter C occurring as this? Occurring the same time as E and I. So in that case, I allow E to come before I. So you can see it in the example receive, in the example deceive, or in the example of another word, a different word although, leisure. People say leisure. It's not leisure, it's leisure. Then others are in the word conceive or in the word receipt. You find out that receipt as a word has P in it, but that P is actually silent. So for correct pronunciation, for correct spelling, you must get your pronunciations correctly. The reason is because some words, such as remember, tomato, desk, all of these words, you will notice that they are spelled just the way they are pronounced. But it's not like that with all English words. Some words do have silent letters. And these words that have silent letters always pose problem when you want to spell them, as you may be tempted to want to include such letters in them that are silent. Now let's consider a few examples of the words you see on the screen. The first word there is lamb. Listen to me again. Lamb. I didn't say lamb. Okay, so the B there is silent and so shouldn't sound out. We also have it in could, could, nut, cupboard, knock, Wednesday, and so on. In all of these words, you notice that there are silent letters in them. For example, in knock, we have K at the beginning, which is a silent letter. So it shouldn't sound out. Now, with all of this, you can quite agree with me that the best way to get my spellings right is to get my pronunciation accurate. So what can I do to make sure I am able to spell rightly? I must try to pronounce the words rightly. Then I also have to practice spelling of words using a good dictionary. With this, with time, I get perfect in my spellings. We have come to the end of this lesson. I will like you to move ahead to play the fun game, and thereafter you can go ahead to do your assignment. But don't forget, if you have any questions in respect to this class, feel free to use the question section to ask me.